What I saw is not the fear of math that stopped them. It's what fear brings.
On this episode, all the baggage that comes with fear of math. Welcome to the Speaking of Math podcast, episode number 57 by Door to Math. This podcast is devoted to all things math education and how parents can be a positive factor in their kids' math learning. Math is the gateway to many professional careers as well as confidence and personal growth. Find more information at www.doortomath.com or on social media at Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Tucson Math Talk. Okay, let's get on with the topic of the day.
Let's talk about a fear today. What's your biggest one?
That I did not make the right choices for my kids and they would not succeed in life because of the choices that I made.
Such as?
Send them to the right school, encourage them to do this, not teach them right about money matters, cleaning up their room. What if I didn't do that? And then because of that, they have a bad marriage, they have a bad life, etc., etc.
That's interesting. Actually, I think those fear are secondary. There's a quality of fear that interferes with math, and it's not fear of math, it's fear of the fear.
Huh? Say what? Fear of fear? That's getting confusing.
I know, fear squared, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think about it, fear of math, just say, okay, I can't do it, math is hard, so on and so forth, right? But what happens is we parents, a lot of moms, especially when they come to my office, what I saw is not the fear of math that stopped them. It's what fear brings. The embarrassment, the doubt, the intelligence questions they have in their own mind, the chip on their shoulder. It's fear of that fear of math that they can't quite get a handle on that. And the weird thing is the fear of that fear is spoken mostly nonverbal, and most kids actually pick up a lot more nonverbal cues.
So fear of fear is all the baggage that comes with it.
Yes, that's a good way to think about that.
All right, so it's kind of a complex topic to me. I kind of grasp it. So how does that affect child's math?
Well, so here's the thing, right? If we, as a parent, let's just use my own example. I have a fear of losing on tennis court, right? You can imagine if when my kids started doing tennis, I'm not thinking about the tennis himself. I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to support my kid if my kid tried really hard and get off the court, get discouraged? So I am not thinking about the tennis or how hard tennis, the sport itself is. I'm more worried about what tennis and failure in tennis is going to bring to my kid. So my inability to address my own up and downs on the tennis court is going to affect how I talk about tennis. It's going to affect how and where I look for help for tennis. It's going to affect how and what I can support when my kid does get off tennis court with unpleasant results.
All right, so are we talking about parents' fear of fear for their kids or the kids' fear of fear themselves?
Kids, when they start, I really believe they're like a dried sponge. They don't really have particular... Yeah, they might like something, they might not like something. But I think from my experience or from my observation in the office, it's like a parent's fear of fear that gets transmitted to the kids.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm conscious and I'm aware of my fear of fear. How do I even go about starting to deal with that or manage that?
Well, I always say, the better we know about ourselves, the better we can, and not quite control, because we can't really censor. The things that we fear is real to us, right? What I do see, though, if you're aware you have a fear, negative experience, and if listening to this one, hopefully you get that fear isn't the real problem. The problem is the fear of that fear, the shame, the disappointment, frustration, all that negative experience that brings it. If you can put that experience on paper, then at least it becomes confined on paper, and you can actually take a look at it and share it with your kids, right? The more we can share our own experience, the more we empower our kids.
Okay, so I have fear of fear. Write down all the negative things that I associate with my child not succeeding in math and that perhaps I associate with myself. on paper, then do what?
Well, next thing is don't avoid it, because the more you avoid, the more nonverbal cue you're transmitting. And kids are dried sponge. They'll pick up those nonverbal communication first. And if you can get ahead the curve and actually make it a verbal communication of your avoidance, then it's so much more powerful than those nonverbal, because in nonverbal realm, you don't have a chance to discuss, to have a different interpretation.
So perhaps start addressing the fear first before addressing the math.
Yes.
Okay, and you're probably thinking, why on earth would I even do that?
Well, think about the consequence, right? You would have to pay in unrealized potential, for example.
That's scary.
That's scary. Missed opportunities, right? Because it's something you avoid. So they say that confidence is on the other side of fear. So if you're avoiding even to get addressing this fear to begin with, how are you ever going to get on the other side? Loss of enjoyment of learning, damping the curiosity. I mean, you can stagger so much more consequences if you don't take hold of this nonverbal communication of avoidance, that fear you have.
So anytime I talk to my kids on the topic of math or relate to them, I have to pretty much walk through fire myself and shed my fears, or at least verbalize my fears before talking to them, so that I don't pass it on to them.
Yeah, I don't know about shedding it. And I know I, as a parent, as a mom, I have a lot of fear. One thing I promised my kids is that I will not avoid my fear, in hoping that I can at least address my own and show my human side. And I tell you that kids are very forgiving in my office, and my own kids also. And I think the more human side I'm showing, I watch my kids to say, that's okay, that's you fear. Sometimes they laugh at my fear, like my spider fear, for example. It brings us closer. That has been my experience.
And so as a parent, by modeling how I cope with my fear, hopefully I can pass that skill on to them when they're in a similar situation.
Hey, parenting is a tough job, and for all the parents out there listening to this, you are an awesome parent to begin with, because you're listening, you're looking for things to do this parenting better. That's already way, way, way ahead of anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. That's already, you're already doing the ace job. You're already acing the job.
All right, so parents can do this. So let's summarize. Fear, it just sounds like a scary topic by itself, and just the word fear brings up a lot of stuff in me. But by dealing with it powerfully in front of our kids, we can make a big contribution. What we talked about today is fear of fear when it comes to math. All the baggage that comes with math failure, the incompetence, the inability to get the job done, and that's called the fear of fear. And if we don't, as parents, don't write this down, don't deal powerfully with it, there are consequences that can bring, and those consequences are unrealized potential, missed opportunities, loss of enjoyment, and damping curiosity. And what I feel myself is, each time I deal with a fearful situation, is kind of I have to walk through fire and be honest with my kids where I'm scared of, so I can come out with the other side and be powerful for them.
Again, hats off for all the parents out there. It's a tough job, and sometimes I feel like it's almost a lonely job. So this is why we're here where we are. We want to support each other. And how does this saying go? We might not have it all together, but together we have it all.
Okay, until next time.
Happy parenting.